Before I get to this week's guest, I went through 8 years of post-separation abuse with my ex, and I felt like I was being tortured. Those of you out there who are experiencing co-parenting with a quote-unquote narcissistic parent, I don't like using the word narcissist because I feel like it makes it seem like they're not making a choice, and I feel like they're definitely making a choice to do this. I like to focus on the fact that it's abusive, but today I'm going to talk about this in terms of narcissism. First, I want to share 7 ways that he might try to undermine you and your kids. And then I'm going to share 7 ways to overcome that. And then we'll get to this week's guest. So first of all, 7 ways a narcissist will undermine your co-parenting. Number 1, gaslighting. They're very good at making you doubt yourself. And they may say you're overreacting when you're not. They may say you're helicopter parenting when you're not. You're just being a good mom. So be on the lookout for how he tries to undermine your self-confidence. Number 2, using the kids to hurt you. This happened to me so much. They might directly manipulate your children to hurt you, or they might just sow chaos so they undermine your children's medical care or their extracurricular activities or their schoolwork or something like that. Number 3, play the victim. I feel like this is the one that hurts the most, at least it did with me. He thought I was at fault for everything. When they twist the truth to make themselves look like the victim and exaggerate what you've done or even tell the truth but out of context, it is so hard to be in contact with somebody like that. Number 4, undermining your authority as a parent or your ability to care for your children. So they might try to take control and make decisions without asking you that are bad for the kids. Number 5, using money as a leverage. They could withhold child support or make unfair demands. Number 6, seeking revenge. This one is really hard because they start doing things that hurt you and your kids for what seems like no reason. Like it doesn't seem to be helping them or helping anyone else. And number 7 is a lack of empathy. They choose not to understand you, or maybe they do and they just don't care. They may know that it will hurt your feelings. They lack that empathy and they want to hurt you. And that is just devastating when they start doing that. So if you have those 7 things going on, here are 7 ways to stay sane. Number 1, know that communication won't help when co-parenting with a narcissist. I cover this extensively in the Living Free workshop. You can get more information at btr.org/livingfree. Number 2, which is learning about strategic boundaries. Most therapists teach boundaries kind of skiwampus, so it doesn't work and they don't actually protect you. Learning about strategic boundaries is really important. Number 3, use a parenting app. The one that I always recommend is OurFamilyWizard that documents everything, including their messages, calendars, info bank. It also has a phone feature, and I go over how to use that in the workshop. Number 4, prioritizing self-care. I am so bad at this. This is truly my weakness. Some of you are really good at it. And if any of you are, I would love for you to share with me how to deal with this. Because when I'm focused on solving a problem, I have a really hard time. Number 5, focus on your children's well-being. You don't have to be perfect. As long as you love your child and you can empathize with them and where they are, you're doing great. And that's awesome. Number 6, develop a support network. So here at BTR, we have our daily group sessions. You're always welcome to jump on there. Having a network of friends and family in person is important. It's very hard to do this, though, especially when you're in the middle of this and they're like turning people against you. Again, in Living Free, I show you how to develop that support network in your local area so that you can have like in-person support. But in terms of online support, we're always here for you. And number 7, when co-parenting with a narcissist, stay informed. It's very important to learn about why they do it, what they're doing, so you can anticipate what they're doing so that you can be a step ahead. I know when I was going through it, I always felt like I was a step behind. Listening to this podcast is one way to stay informed. The Living Free workshop also outlines exactly what they're doing and why so that you can be a step ahead. All right, now to this week's guest. Tammy Guns is here today. She's going to be sharing her story. She started her career in auditing and accounting for 2 Big 4 public accounting firms. Then she served in leadership roles in large-scale healthcare organizations before her career as a certified divorce financial analyst. Her expertise extends beyond the advisory realm as a trusted expert witness in courtrooms, offering invaluable insights utilizing forensic accounting. She has also served on 2 boards of directors and has completed Deloitte's certification program for women board readiness. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
You mentioned that your personal story is part of what interested you in becoming a certified divorce financial analyst. So, can we start there?
Yes, well, you can only connect the dots going backwards. And when I look back to my dating of him, there were so many signs that showed he was a narcissist, but I was so young. I had a wonderful father who was incredibly involved in our lives. I'm one of four children. And when I met my ex husband, I did not believe a man could not be a good husband and a good father because I had such an amazing example of one. I was right out of college when I met him. I was just captured. He's good looking, he's charismatic, he's super intelligent. He was a football player in college. I'm like, of course he'll be a good dad. Of course he'll be a good husband because that's what I had as an example. And I was looking for all the wrong things. Today, I'd have a phone conversation with him and realize absolutely what a narcissist he is.
hmm Well, we don't know. It's not our fault. I think even if you learned about what a narcissist was, until the mask comes off, you still wouldn't know that they were a narcissist. We don't even have the context for it. You might see the red flags, but because of your context, you think, oh, he's tired or he's stressed out. So to say people saw red flags and then they ignored them, I would say people saw the red flags and the context they had for them was not that context. Knowing what you know now, what would you go back and do differently? It's like, would you do anything different when you knew what you knew then? And the answer is always, I couldn't do anything different.
Correct. I couldn't. So I had been married for about 17 years when my then husband came home and basically said to me, I'm done being married to you, and I know how much you love the children, so you can have them. It was pretty traumatic to have the rug pulled out from underneath me. So I ended up going on the journey of a divorce, certainly not understanding anything that was going to happen. In today's environment, it's more of a 50-50 situation. But I went from being a stay at home mom to going back into the workforce, as well as having the children 100% by myself. I do have four college degrees, so I was in the workforce for a while, but at the time I was a stay at home mother.
Wow. That is very unique. I don't hear that every day where you got them 100% of the time. So many women, at least who listen to this podcast or who I interview, they're fighting these narcissists or these abusers in court for years. So that is like a miracle. Was that happening with a lot of people back then?
Even back then, dads had the kiddos every other weekend and probably one night during the week for dinner, like a Wednesday night. What happened in my particular situation is my ex went through a midlife crisis. He started dating a 25-year-old girl that reported directly to him at work. His midlife crisis was, not only do I not want to be married, I also don't want to have the responsibility of taking care of children. He wanted to be able to travel the world with her, do all sorts of fun things, and of course, children get in the way. At the time, I was incredibly scared. How am I going to take care of these children full time as well as work full time? But as you said, and in hindsight, it was the greatest blessing that could ever happen because that way I did have the children by myself as far as not having a narcissistic father involved. I did spend 10 years in court with him, but it wasn't over the time with the children. It was a matter of him actually paying me. Our ink was not even dry on our divorce decree, and he was already not paying me spousal support, not paying me child support, et cetera, et cetera. So I was unfortunately wrapped up in the court system for a very long period of time until my youngest child went off to college, but I never had to fight him for time. Like I said, I feel fortunate.
How did you know that he was a narcissist?
He told me on our wedding night, I will not fail. I do not fail at anything. And so I really believed we were going to be married for the rest of our lives. I didn't think he would want to be divorced because, quote unquote, that would be a failure. Of course, everything's crystal clear in hindsight, but certainly not when that's happening. I looked up a lot about narcissists He meets the Mayo Clinic definition of a narcissist, like every single point. He lacks empathy. I know that a lot of times people will throw the word narcissist around quite loosely. And that could be just somebody who's self absorbed, but he actually meets the Mayo Clinic definition. There was no physical abuse involved. However, the emotional abuse has lasting scars.
And talking about emotional and psychological abuse, which the court doesn't really recognize. And so there's really no way of protecting your kids through the courts because of the current climate of not recognizing it. And so that's why we have a workshop that teaches women how to strategically face this. So let's talk about court and the problems that happened in court regarding the payment, even though you had children 100% of the time. And my guess is you had a ton of proof.
First of all, depending on what state you are in, you may or may not have a dedicated family court system. Now, why is that important? In my particular case, there was not a dedicated family court. So, therefore, you would have judges that are just rolling off the criminal bench. And now they're like, oh, hello, I'm in the courtroom. And now let's talk about family law. My ex was a chief financial officer, a very good looking man, very articulate man who would be able to go into court and just look the part and talk the part. And he was able to twist all sorts of things so that the judge would actually have some level of compassion for him and why he was not paying his child support payments or behind in paying his spousal support payments. And in the judge's eyes, you can imagine, right? They're just coming off of the criminal court system where there's a lot of very dark things that happen. So then when you're just looking at someone, oh, you're behind on your child support payments, and here's the particular reason for it, they have a level of compassion that they really should not have. And the courts are very clunky. He wasn't paying. So now I'm financially feeling that impact of not having that income. And now you've got increased expenses because now your attorney is saying, I need another 5,000, I need another $10,000. And they want their payment right away or they're not going to work for you. So now your expenses are increasing at a time your revenue or your income is decreasing. And it's not like you're going to get an answer in 5 minutes. You might file something with the courts and it might not be heard for months. And then just as it's coming up, and he did this to me a lot. And actually, because I had the children 100% of the time, I moved states for my career. And even though I had the children in Colorado, I was always having to catch a plane to go back to where he was domiciled in order to go to court. It's just so frustrating. I had paid for my plane ticket. I had my attorney completely prepped for the hearing. So you paid all that attorney preparation time. I'm paying for the hotel room, and I'd get a call at 10 o'clock at night from my attorney. Oh, by the way, they're continuing the hearing. He did that on purpose. A narcissist is going to do that in order to mess with you. If they really had a good reason to continue in the hearing, they would have done it before I ever got on that plane. So that was just another tactic to interfere with my life. And this would just go on and on. One of my hearings took over 2 years for them to consider child support. So people should understand it's not like, yay, I get my day in court. No, even when you do have your day in court, the ruling, I've been on cases that I've testified and the ruling doesn't come until a year later.
It seems to always benefit the abuser and never the victim, just in general. If you want a rule, which there are no rules, right? Because it can go any way, but the likelihood of it benefiting the abuser is much higher than the likelihood of it benefiting the victim.
Absolutely.
That's the scary part. And I think the other issue is enforcement, because no matter what the ruling says, enforcing it is going to be another part of the problem.
I'm on a case right now where one party was supposed to pay my fees as well as my client's attorney fees. No, there's even a ruling that says that has to happen. I still haven't received my payment. So I know exactly what you're saying happens. The cases that end up in court and end up in court for years, always one of the parties is a narcissist because no one else wants to spend that kind of energy and time and resources. In fact, my attorney would always say it's just cheaper for him to pay you than to pay his attorney. And get the ruling because the rulings would go in my favor, but it's a year and a half later or 2 years later. So in the meantime, I'm struggling. So it is absolutely an abuse tactic. And I said to my attorney, I don't think you understand. This is not a matter of it's less expensive for him to just pay me outright. This is a game. I promise you, this is a game to a narcissist.
It's a power play and they like it. They're the opposite of normal people who think that chaos and spending money to hurt people is not enjoyable. There's been times where he comes into court so happy, and that always surprises me. I shouldn't be surprised, but it's really interesting to me. And the victim is so overwhelmed, not necessarily disheveled, because women can show up very well put together. So that's not what I'm saying. But she's clearly not enjoying this, and he is enjoying it. What are your thoughts about why these types of abusers enjoy it, especially after your own personal experience?
Having experienced it myself, I promise you, the abuser walks in almost like a saunter. It's interesting to see it. I've seen the narcissist put their arm around the back of the chair of their attorney and they sit back and they're absolutely at ease. And of course, this guy says he has no money, but here's evidence he actually does. Yeah, it's a game and it's a way to be able to still exert control because in a relationship, when you're still together, whether dating or whether you're married, there's a level of control that happens. And I remember my attorney saying to me the day that we actually got officially divorced, he said, I'm worried about you. And I said, why would you be worried about me? He's never hit me. He's never done anything physical to me. He said, I'm telling you right now, he no longer has control over you and he will seek it in some manner. And that's what he did. So instead of being able to abuse me emotionally in our home every day, the only way to exert control and abuse over me was through the court system. And he used it. It truly is a weaponization of the court system.
Yeah, it's legal abuse that the legal system is willingly and actively participating in. Now, does that mean that I think that they knowingly are doing that? No. I don't think that the judges are like, I know he's abusive and that's fine, but they are making the abuse worse for the victims. And it's unfortunate that they're not aware of that. They become extensions of the abuse in some way.
They do. And these judges have a lot of cases on their docket. People have, quote unquote, the right to their day in court. So when you file a petition, when you file motions, you have a right to that. Yes, the abusers know that. A lot of times I've seen cases where people are behind in paying their child support payments. All of a sudden, the day before court, like I've seen cases where people are behind over $100,000 in paying child support. And then the day before court, to compel them to pay, they might pay like 30,000. And so then you're like, "Oh, okay, well they made an effort." So it absolutely is a system where the abuser can continue to abuse.
Can we talk about what I would like to deem as unethical pressure a victim's attorney will put on her to settle, which might be in her best interest rather than spending another $150,000 going to court in attorney fees? But this happened with me, and I am still upset about it. We didn't even present anything to the court, like a motion or even a defense or anything. And my attorney said that will cost you $150,000 in attorney fees. So why don't we just shut this down now and only pay $40,000 in attorney fees? In the process of that, I got zero things that I wanted, like literally zero. So the only thing I paid the attorney fees for was to basically wrap up the case so I didn't have something in court happening. I knew that I had all the proof on my side, but it was just too expensive for me to do it, and the attorneys knew it. Lose lose, because even if I won, I was still out $150,000 that I did not have. So, can you talk about that rock and a hard place that victims are in and how their attorneys end up traumatizing women in this process?
You're absolutely correct. This is the dilemma that happens. The fact that an attorney will sit down with their client and say, listen, we're going to go to court and we are going to lose on things. We're going to go to court and we're going to win on things that you thought there's no way we're going to win. It's hard to tell what actually can happen in a case. Certainly, you have prior case history, but the courts are always evolving. And so it's never 100% sure. And that's why, in my particular situation, we even went to the Court of Appeals because the lower court judge who had rolled off the criminal bench, didn't understand family law, actually made an error in the ruling. And so that was additional expense. Now, I was fortunate. This is not the case most of the time. My attorney firm believed so strongly that the judge had made a mistake. They said, we're going to fund most of this because it was tens of thousands of dollars. And they wanted it because it was prestigious and for their law firm to be able to go before the Court of Appeals and actually win. And we did win in the Court of Appeals. But again, now you're talking about another year. Had I had to make that decision myself and foot the entire bill, there's no way. I would have had to live with the judge's error in the ruling. But even though the attorney firm that I had worked with was willing to do that, it was remanded to the lower court. And let me tell you, it can really annoy the judge that now you appealed them and you have to continue to be in front of that judge. They can retaliate against you in their rulings. And so even though I won in the Court of Appeals, in reality, I did not.
Can you talk about why the law is so unpredictable?
Back when I got divorced, there wasn't a lot of statutes. And that was back when whoever had the bigger, better hired gun would win in the court system. Now, I will say the courts have improved on some level in that there are far more statutes that they follow. So it has gotten better, but it's still not where it needs to be. Case law can affect things. And back when I got divorced, if you got divorced with the exact same case facts in a different county or in front of a different judge, you could get an entirely different ruling. It's just that it's a very old, archaic system that has a lot of things that need improvement, especially when it comes to the children. Because, like I said, the landscape is they really want 50-50 parenting.
Yeah. In Utah, we just passed Ohm's Law, which is similar to Caden's Law. Are you aware of that law?
I don't think I am.
Where are you?
I'm in Colorado.
So you guys passed it too.
Okay.
It made reunification therapy illegal. And the reason why is because abusers are using it. I mean, it's just an abuser tactic. So now they've just renamed it a different name and they're still doing it. There's no way to stop them because now it has a different name and they're still court ordering it, even though it's against the law. And it's against the law in Colorado as well. We're trying to run it here about emotional and psychological abuse because at least the 2 cases here, and you had one recently, someone who was never physically abusive ever, then murdered people. Yours was with the dentist who murdered his wife. It is called Caden's Law in Colorado, and it was passed in 2023. It protects children from abuse and custody cases, and this would be at play with the money situation if he gets less custody, because then he would need to pay more. And I feel like there's 2 things happening with abusers. There's just the control. They like the control. But the second part is that they want the most custody in order to pay the least amount of child support. And so then the kids get to their house and they neglect them at their home. They don't think, wait, I'm going to have to actually do something with these children.
Absolutely.
They just want to have the most amount of parent time possible because all they see is the paycheck to their ex. And they would rather make their kids miserable at their house neglecting them than pay their ex any child support.
Absolutely, because the child support formula, at least in the state of Colorado, is based on the income of mom, income of dad, who pays the health insurance, because that ends up getting split. And so if one person's paying it, that's factored into the child support calculation. And then obviously time with mom and with dad. Yes. So more time, if it's a 50-50 split, the child support ends up being pretty low, actually, here in the state of Colorado. Whereas if mom does have predominantly far more time, the child support calculation certainly increases considerably. And when the children are with dad, homework's not getting done or they get dropped off at school late, things like that.
We don't recommend trying to get a parenting coordinator or a custody evaluator because that's another avenue for him to abuse her. So if he messages her and she won't do what he wants because the parenting plan says no, right? You're supposed to pick up on Wednesdays. And he's like, no, I want to pick up on Thursdays. Then he can go through the parenting coordinator and the parenting coordinator will make her do it. That's why we're like, don't even use a parenting coordinator. We do not recommend it at all. So one of the things that I've often either asked women that I talk to or I've thought myself is, if you were a billionaire, would you want to remain married to this person? Pretty much everyone that asks that says, no, I wouldn't, because I want to continue being a stay-at-home mom, or because I want to continue to homeschool. I'm not a homeschooler, but other women have wanted to do that, or their life just is drastically changing in a way that they can't control. And so finances are such an important piece of that puzzle.
Absolutely. It's incredibly frustrating because what can happen in a divorce is what's called financial strangulation. And the other side can do that, especially if you have a working spouse and then the other one is a stay at home spouse. And so they'll cut off bank accounts or cut off credit cards. So it can cut off people's access to cash or the ability to leave the situation. Here I have 4 college degrees, but at the time I got divorced, I was a stay at home mom because we were supporting his career in order for him to advance. And it helped him. It didn't help me personally. And then I had to go out and not only raise my children 100%, but then also get back into the workforce. And it's very scary.
I've seen 2 cases recently where the ex was extremely wealthy. When I say extreme, I mean extreme. The women ended up with hardly anything because he shut down bank accounts or moved money around or spent a lot of money, or ended up just scaring her so bad that she did not get what she was entitled to. And the lawyers in her case were like, do you want to spend 4 more, 5 more years? I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between what you're legally entitled to. Like, this is the law, and then actually spending the money to get it. And there's really no way around that. That's what our living free strategies are about in our workshop, that teach women this is strategically how to deal with them. And it might mean that you leave a bunch of money that you're entitled to on the table just so that you don't have to get abused anymore.
Exactly what you're saying. If one person has control over the credit cards, has control over bank accounts, take out a credit card right now in your name only. You can use the household income so you can get a higher credit limit. Financial strangulation is a real thing because in order to have an attorney represent you, you've got to be able to pay the attorney. And in order to pay your bills, you've got to have financial resources. And like you're saying, women say, I don't even qualify for rent. No one will rent to me because I don't have a credit score history. Some landlords want the full lump sum right away. And people just don't have the financial resources to do that. It's rare that people have financial resources because, like you're saying, most people are just getting by.
In a defense case, like if you're charged with a crime, you at least get the public defender, but there is no version of a public defender in divorce.
What's supposed to happen is once a petition for dissolution has been filed, everything has to be status quo. So you're not allowed to change beneficiaries. You're not allowed to drop people from health insurance policies. You're not allowed to do all of these things, but abusers will do that. And do you have the ability to say they were wrong? Yeah, but it requires financial resources to be able to pay the attorney to get in front of the judge.
And I think that's the main problem that I see repeatedly happening with attorneys is they'll tell the victims, well, this is the law. He can't do that. I think the court isn't recognizing that he is doing it. I remember my attorney being like, once this is signed, and I'm just laughing now, you don't need to worry because this is what the parenting plan says. And I was like, the second I sign it and he signs it, the case is over, but I can literally scrunch it up and throw it in the garbage can because he's not going to follow it.
Correct. They don't follow it. Even when I was going through my divorce, he was trying to have a good appearance in front of the kids. He would say, I'm going to come and pick up the kids at 5 o'clock for dinner. So I would make plans to go out with girlfriends or maybe go on a date. And lo and behold, it's 8 o'clock and he still hasn't picked them up.
Yep.
He might keep them overnight on a Friday night and he would say, they're sick. And I'm like, it's Saturday. He goes, I don't know who their pediatrician is. I don't know who to call. So, getting back to the beginning of our conversation, in that I was fortunate that I had the kids 100% of the time, because had they been with their dad, they would have missed a lot of things. He didn't know who their pediatrician was. And it actually would have been, for me personally, not even the children, I know I would have gone through him not picking up the kids when he said he was, or not dropping them off. In fact, when I was moving states for a job, he had the children that day and he knew I had to get on the road at a decent hour. Our exchange time was going to be 5 o'clock because I had many hours to go before I was going to be able to get to a hotel. He didn't bring the kids back that night until 11 o'clock. And I had to get on the road that late. What are you going to do? How to litigate that in court? That was just another way to exhaust me, which is terrible, right? He purposely kept the kids until 11 o'clock that night, and I was exhausted. So
Mhm.
I know that I was incredibly fortunate that I got my children 100% of the time, because I would have had that day in and day out, that type of abusive situation of not following the parenting plan at all.
So it's hard to be like, the parenting plan is going to help. Or in my own personal case, my attorney would say, did you see the draft? Was it okay? And I was like, I'll just sign anything. I don't even care what it says because it does not matter.
Because you know who that person is. There's got to be more education within the court system. I remember going to a therapist that specialized in narcissists right after I had gotten divorced, because I was quite broken emotionally. And I remember the therapist saying to me, that tool belt that you have to interact with other people, you need to take that off and set that aside, because it doesn't apply at all with a narcissist. I remember almost having this sigh of relief hearing those words, to know that there was someone who absolutely understood what I was going through. Because you can't explain, like other people, even my girlfriends who I love dearly, they would say, why does he do that? Why can't the court see what he is doing? And I would say, here's the thing, you're trying to use that tool belt of normal conflict management or normal personal interaction, but that tool belt does not apply with a narcissist. You have to take that off and throw it away, because we are talking about an entire new set of circumstances, and they don't play by the rules. It's all playing to win. It's a game. And it's sad. I actually believe, and this is in hindsight, that my ex husband saw my goodness and he saw my light, and he wanted what I have, and he wanted my view of the world. And so, because he couldn't have it, he was going to make sure that I was just beat down to the ground. Now, unfortunately, it took until my daughter turned 18 before I finally could have a life where I could live without him in it. In the court system, you're tied to them up until
Mhm.
they're 18 years old. And so he was able to use the courts to abuse me up until that time. The thing is, in my mind back then, I really viewed that I was standing up for my, just like you're saying, like they view the courts as an extension of a way to abuse you. And at the time, I looked at it as, I'm doing this on behalf of my children. My children have a right to this money. I took him to court to get him to pay, but he was always taking me to court to reduce my child support. Narcissists, they're going to lie. And a lot of them are quite successful individuals. My ex was a chief financial officer, because they're able to use their charisma to move up the corporate ladder, to be business owners. I had one case where, oh, I make $80,000 a year. And I told the judge, no, he makes $480,000 a year. The judge absolutely took my report in its entirety. During COVID, where people were getting those PPP loans, that was a huge abuse in the court system, because these business owners, maybe their revenue had gone down, but now their employee expenses were zero because the government through the PPP loan was paying for that, but they still got to deduct those expenses. So these narcissists would run to court. They would tell the judge, you need to stop my child support. Look, at my business is in the red. In reality, it wasn't. Their revenue was down, but their expenses were zero. You have to be careful of these people who run to the court seeking relief from their child support payments, when in reality, they were doing just fine financially because of these loans. And I know the shortcomings of the court system.
The court system is this gauntlet of pain.
If you're going into a court system and thinking that it's going to solve your problems, it's not. Are there glimmers of hope and are there things that can happen? Yes. You've got this legal system, but then you've got the emotional situation that you're going through. And certainly there's a financial situation. You have to have a multi pronged approach in order to resolve it. And that's why the beauty of you offering a course to women to be able to help heal them and help give them some tools in other avenues to deal with this narcissist. Even just recently, I saw my ex husband because my oldest daughter, my middle child, just got married. You're going to continue to see them at birthdays, at graduations, at weddings. The tools that you offer in order to be able to deal with them, they're invaluable going forward. You can get to the other side, but you need an incredible support system. You cannot do this alone. I would always say to my girlfriends, I swear I'd be 6 feet under if it weren't for them, because they were the ones that saw my beauty. They were the ones who saw my strength. They were the ones that were my greatest cheerleaders who said, get up, dust yourself off. You can do this another day. So I really believe having an effective support in place was key for me to be able to get to the other side of this. I could never have gotten to the other side of it alone.
Going through the court in some way or another, you're going to have a legal document that you sign in order to be divorced.
Correct.
There's no way around it. Now, the way that I got my kids completely free of my ex, we didn't go to court, but he did sign a legal document. So I'm not saying that is going to work for everyone, or there's no guarantees, but there's no way around the legal ramifications and some type of legal process. And you can do it DIY. You can have a BTR coach help you. You can hire an attorney. There's multiple avenues to do this, but you have to do it. And so no matter how terrible it is or miserable or hopeless, having the right team, a trauma informed divorce coach like we have here. We mostly deal with like strategy and emotions, how to keep yourself centered, thought strategies that you can use so that you can actually function. I think the hopeful part is that even though this is going to be one of the hardest things that you've ever done, that you can get through it. You will survive. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and our team will be there for you. No matter what the outcome is, you will survive and your kids will be okay. I think that's what I'm trying to land on. For all of us who have been through it and we're looking back, we know that will happen, but it's very hard to feel that when you're going through it.
It is. There's no other way, especially when you have children, because of the fact that the courts require you to have the parenting plans and whatnot. But there is light at that other side, but you must walk through this process. And that's why, just as you stated, it's important to have professionals in place who can help you on several fronts to be able to navigate this environment legally, as well as personally, emotionally, spiritually, all of that. The more of a support system you can have in place, the better chance of your success.
Well, thank you so much, Tammy, for spending time to talk with us today. I appreciate you.
I have enjoyed my time with you. Thank you so much for having me on your show.